You're listening to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor, powered by bbbgive.org. Here we explore the motivations that form the basis of giving and service. We inspire generosity and celebrate the transformative effects that giving and service have on the human spirit and on community. The conversations featured on the podcast also uncover giving strategies that educate and provide tools to help listeners make impactful gifts of both their time and money. We hope you enjoy this episode.
This is the Heart of Giving podcast, powered by bbbgive.org. Give.org is the nation's standards-based charity evaluator, and it's your one-stop source for information on giving and reports on the most asked about charities. I'm Art Taylor, and today my guest is Abby Ross. Abby is the CEO of Network for Good, and anyone who is in the nonprofit space will certainly know and appreciate the work that Network for Good does. But it's been a while, frankly, since I've had a chance to check in with the organization, and I haven't spoken to Abby since she's taken over now a couple of years since she's been in this role. And so I thought I'd get her on the show just to see what's happening, what's new, and what's exciting going on at Network for Good. So Abby, welcome to the Heart of Giving podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
So Abby, you didn't necessarily start out in nonprofit work, right? What's your background?
No, I'm relatively new to the space. I'm an entrepreneur by background. Started my career in a travel startup where I kind of got to see the beginning of a company all the way through fundraising and then eventual acquisition. So kind of cut my teeth building businesses. Then went on and co-founded a social impact education technology company that focuses on helping K-12 students build critical thinking skills. Did that as the co-founder and chief product officer for about 8 years and loved every minute of it. We're in about 30% of US schools. And then ultimately wanted to roll my sleeves back up and kind of get back to building. And so became the CEO of an education technology nonprofit. So that's where I had an opportunity to get into grant writing and fundraising and kind of learning the ins and outs of a 990. And that's ultimately what led me to Network for Good, where I, really appreciated going deep in the education space, but wanted to kind of pull up and figure out opportunities for a broader impact across multiple sectors. And that's what led me to become the CEO of Network for Good about 2.5 years ago.
Great. So that brings you to this wonderful world of supporting nonprofits. And we know Network for Good, I think it started back in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken, or late 90s.
2001, right
2001.
after,
okay, right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11 as a way to give money online. 3 tech titans at the time, AOL, Cisco, and Yahoo, created Network for Good.
Yeah. Well, I remember because it was this new thing coming into the nonprofit sector, and it was going to really help organizations raise money because it had this really strong ability to get people to give online. And we were just coming into the whole world of online giving. Now it's, ubiquitous. But back then it was like, what is this online? What are you talking about? People giving online on the computer. That's not safe. That's not going to work. But here you are, some 23 years later, still thriving. But the organization is going through some transformations. Talk about that.
Yeah, we've always had at our core this mission of making it easy for donors to support their favorite charities anywhere on the web. Our mission is to unleash generosity. And, when we first started, we were featured on the homepage of AOL as a marketplace to find charities. When you look at the ecosystem today, there are so many amazing platforms to be able to do that. Also, nonprofits have really taken to online fundraising with tools. But we've continued to think of ourselves as a way to serve as an enduring asset, an enduring utility to help ensure the secure and easy way to donate online. So what started as kind of a marketplace, we then evolved into spinning out a for-profit version of Network for Good, also named Network for Good. We refer to that as networkforgood.com, where they built software to help nonprofits fundraise online better. Saw that that was a great way to advance our mission. Meanwhile, we've kind of been chugging along as a 501c3 operating our donor advised fund. And today, with this kind of novel structure of a donor advised fund and really what I call our operationalized expertise of helping people raise money and get that money directly to charities efficiently and effectively, we've been able to serve that mission over, like you said, the past 23 years.
Yeah. Tell us about some of the services that the .com provides that amplifies the importance of the work that the C3 does.
Yeah, the relationship between the two has, really served the mission. They are currently now part of Bonterra in that ecosystem, but the fundraising tools are really to help build capacity of nonprofit leaders by providing opportunities to create easy turnkey ways to donate online, newsletters, donor management systems, really serving that small, medium, grassroots nonprofit. They also have a ton of resources on ways to think about building relationships with donors. And then that ties into how we work with them by providing visibility into the donations that come in with donor information, and kind of we're in the back end, mailing the checks, sending the ACH, and ensuring that nonprofit leaders have this predictable and sustainable visibility into funds that come in through the platform.
Right. And the platform is pretty much operated through this donor advised fund. Is that correct?
Bingo. Yeah.
Yeah. So how is it that nonprofits generate revenues through that platform? So are there ways for organizations, for instance, to have campaigns, or how do they go about enabling the channel that you have for them to raise money?
Great question. And this is where the relationship between networkforgood.com and us really becomes kind of a broader ecosystem question. So on networkforgood.com, now Bonterra, that's where nonprofit leaders can come in and really, take destiny into their own hands and create those campaigns, giving pages, website, email campaigns, etc. We, as networkforgood.org on the Donor Advised Fund, we partner with organizations like Walmart, Spark, YouTube, Patagonia. So we are the Donor Advised Fund that enable those partners to create amazing, powerful giving programs. So if you go on Patagonia's ActionWorks website, as an example, you can find any eligible charity to give to. Donate to Network for Good Donor Advised Fund. We then ensure that that donation gets to the intended donor's nonprofit. So we really sit kind of in the middle of, yes, powering Network for Good's platform and individual charities, but also working with the world's most influential brands to create powerful giving experiences that we provide access to all 1.5 million eligible charities, do the compliance, and ensure that those donations get to those nonprofit leaders. So I have tons of recommendations for nonprofit leaders on how to increase their visibility onto their platforms and recognize that your best audience is your existing donors and supporters, and the fact that they can find you throughout the internet. We're trying to make that more ubiquitous.
So if I was just starting out as a nonprofit and I wanted to get more visibility, raise some funds online, would I essentially be able to get listed somewhere on Network for Good's pages or web pages? Where would I exist as one of the 1.3 million organizations?
Yeah. One of the best parts of Network for Good is that you're already eligible as a 501c3. We already have you as a nonprofit that can raise money on our partner website. Some recommendations I might have to increase your visibility is, improving the data set that you provide about your mission, your address, where you are, the types of work you're doing. Those are the sort of things that get surfaced on specific giving programs for how users can find you. It's all about how your donors can find you on third-party platforms because you're already listed on Network for Good as an eligible charity.
So if I wanted to expand that visibility, I would go in, update the information. So where are you pulling this information from that gets updated on these various places where you exist?
We don't want to have yet another place where nonprofits have to go and update their information. We pull from the 990s. So I always, recommend using Candid as a place to, if your information is, buttoned up there, that's where we're pulling from and updating. So there doesn't need to be another place.
That's very helpful. So then, the nonprofit sector is evolving. And just a couple of days ago, the Generosity Commission, of which I was a part, I was co-chair of the Policy and Government Relations Task Force. And we came out with a report that basically gives some recommendations for what we should do in our society to change the trend of the declining number of people donating to charity. And I've said it enough on this podcast. We've got a big problem in that we've gone from about 66% of families giving to nonprofits down to 49.5%. And other data shows that everyday givers believe that it's the job of the really wealthy to give to charity, not their job, not the everyday giver's job. And so we've got somehow a disconnect in that most nonprofits need the everyday giver because they give us the freedom and the flexibility that we need to do our work in a somewhat unfettered way, right? And if there's too much of our money dependent, coming from really wealthy people, while it's nice to get, and we don't want them to stop giving by any stretch, we want them to give more, but we need to balance that out with the everyday giver. I would imagine that this is something that is on the radar of Network for Good, given that you are about everybody giving, right? You're creating a path for everyone to give. So are there things that you're doing today to try to help us reverse that trend, or how might your service begin to do some things that could help reverse those trends?
It's a great question. And I'm so thankful for the work of the Generosity Commission to elevate these trends to, platforms like us and the ecosystem more broadly. We think of ourselves as the engine for meaningful giving across the world's most influential platforms. So organizations that we partner with like Google and YouTube and Patagonia, this is about empowering them to make those meaningful moments for the everyday giver accessible. Really good example is working with Walmart on a roundup campaign. So at checkout, online, potential donors can select a specific charity. It's not your generic roundup. It's empowering everyday donors to select the specific cause they care about. And that is a really powerful mechanism to focus on the grassroots and small nonprofits that so depend on the generosity of the everyday donor. The other really pressing thing that I'm really proud that we've been focusing on is about a year and a half ago, coming out of the Gates Foundation Greater Giving Summit that talked a lot about everyday donors. A room of giving platforms were together. PayPal Giving, Facebook, Network for Good, Bonterra. We were all in the room kind of talking about challenges and realized there's no real forum for us to kind of get at the heart of what collaboration might look like to solve that exact pain point for both the nonprofits and the donors. Things like sharing data so you don't have to log into 35 different platforms, creating common standards and ways to make it easy to support kind of different regulations that come through. So we've spun up what started as an ad hoc kind of working group, but now is going to be more formal. It's called the Giving Platform Collaborative. And the charter of the Giving Platform Collaborative is to lift up the entire sector by ensuring there's kind of conversation between the different giving platforms. We have a major focus on equitable giving and focus on kind of allowing grassroots nonprofits and everyday givers to have better experiences with online giving. So that is something that from a kind of longevity standpoint, I'm hoping becomes a place where we can work together as an industry on, frankly, very tactical things that manifest as bigger deals to donors and nonprofits that feel like friction that I think with some collaboration we can help overcome.
Fantastic. Have you seen anything so far that you care to share that tactically could be helpful?
One of the things that, we kind of operate, because I'm an entrepreneur by background, we came together, we said, hey, there should be this collaborative. And within about 6 weeks, we launched for Black Philanthropy Month in August, led by Floyd Jones, an initiative called Back Black, with a focus on we had all these giving platforms that were doing something for Black Philanthropy Month, but no real centralized way to, if you're a Black-led nonprofit, you have to kind of just happen to hear about something. So we created a central source of all of the giving platforms saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. So you could go to one place. And that also spurred matching donations from the giving platform. So just building the muscle of collaboration and kind of organizing around something to make it easier for donors to support Black-led nonprofits and nonprofit leaders to find, hey, here's where I could actually get matching donations in the month of August was a great example of, hey, let's get something done. Let's put something out there with a meaningful impact, measure that, and then this past August was year 2, and we had even more matching donations than we did the first year.
That's fantastic. So where are the matches coming from?
From the giving platforms themselves. So organizations like Network for Good, Give Butter, Giving Gap really all came together and said, here's a great list, and we will match, donations that come from those everyday donors.
That's unbelievable. That's really exciting to hear. So in time, you're going to fix this whole problem, then, it looks
Oof.
Like.
I mean, no, we set our sights high, and this is a sector that is has so much potential to collaborate because we all are very mission driven and see this incredible opportunity to support the folks doing the work. It feels like the least we can do is make it easier for them.
Yeah. So as a donor, right, what are some of the common challenges that people have when they go online to make a gift that we can think about addressing? Because I'm really stuck on this. I'm really stuck on this idea that people got to give more. And you mentioned less friction. That's really important. What are some of the common issues that people have? And I'm not only focused on your organization per se, but on charity websites in general. When people come to make a gift, what are some of the things that you've seen that you might want to share to help organizations a bit?
So flexibility, the way that kind of consumer technology has evolved, people as consumers, kind of first, donors as well, expect a certain level of e-commerce ease. And so one of the things that I always recommend to nonprofit leaders is there are a lot of really fantastic, some free tools out there to meet donors where they are and allow them to give the way they want to give. Yes, that can be your traditional credit card with a two-step kind of checkout process. That also can be, things like a stock gift or crypto or a paper check. So finding flexible kind of plug-in ways to meet donors to donate in a flexible way is a really turnkey way. I always recommend every.org's tools as a free kind of low code way for nonprofit leaders to make that easy. I also kind of put a call out to brands and platforms that have appetite to integrate giving into the workflow of what people are already doing to make those moments of generosity feel frictionless. And that's something that, we really try to help sit with organizations that have an appetite for social impact and say, how do we bake this into the experience so that it's something that kind of comes naturally?
I want to ask a question more in line with what I do every day, which is to help people make gifts, but also, most importantly, informed gifts or gifts to organizations that can actually have a shot anyway at doing what they say, right? So I know we talk about 1.3 million organizations out there. Not every one of them is going to be up to the challenge. Is there anything that you all do or can do to sort of help people make the best giving decisions and put their money where they really need it to go in order to solve problems?
I think we saw an incredible amount of progress on what it means to support your local community, as a result of both the pandemic and what that can mean for local grassroots charity. I think that most of the research still shows one of the main reasons people donate to a cause is because somebody asked them to. So finding opportunities to empower your existing donor base or your community into kind of being that voice for whether it's research, recommendation, that is one of the most powerful things, we can do. And I do think about that as a leader of, kind of this platform of what are ways that we can increase the likelihood to make it easier for people to share and find. The other thing that in kind of entering into the space of nonprofit, there are so many fantastic resources out there for folks to get informed around what the work of specific nonprofits, recommendations, if it is kind of more cause and identity based giving. So ways to kind of pipe in those insights into the giving experience with verified partners. Giving Compass is a great one. Really impressed with their work and the rigor and depth behind it. Is a great example.
Fantastic. So there's AI now. You're a platform. You're as much a technology company as you are, a giving related organization. Are you thinking about how to integrate AI and how might that also help people be more frictionless in their giving?
We've started to think about AI as ways to remove friction both internally. A lot of the value that we provide in the ecosystem, kind of as this utility, is stuff that donors never see, but they need to work, right? Things that are important like compliance, like If you make a address verified, right? So if you make a donation to a nonprofit, you expect it to go there. Well, if they're not dialed into ACH, we're mailing paper checks, and those paper checks can get lost in the mail. We could be missing a suite number and the deliverability. So there are these little things that have to happen in the background. So we've been thinking a little bit about this operationalized expertise and this technology enabled process, and where are there moments that we can boost things like deliverability, like velocity of funds into the community, and things that we really can control that make a really big difference, especially when you think about the volume we are operating on. So those are some metrics that when I think about AI, it's how do we make these things that matter a lot to nonprofit leaders, like the velocity of funds or deliverability, more likely to happen and a little bit more seamless behind the scenes.
I mean, there's so much going on. We just created a tool. I don't know if you're aware of it, called askgive.org.
Yes, fantastic.
Yeah. So people can go in there now and ask questions about charities or about giving in general, and it'll help them think through their solution, the solution that they're thinking to get. And we're really proud of it and hope that in time it will not only be the data that we've curated from our own site, but it can be information that we've curated from others. So we should talk potentially about how we can get some of your valuable information in that too.
Absolutely. And what I love about that approach, kind of back to the people give because somebody, asked them to, or they had a conversation about it. What you've done with that tool is you give kind of the forum instead of just search and return. It allows for that modality of discovery and thinking and, kind of going that next level deep. So really excited to see how that tool evolves.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, you have a team, obviously, at your organization that has a lot of different expertise. I was on a show the other day, and the whole issue of, are we able to attract the talent that we need in the nonprofit sector came up. And I know in our organization, Abby, we are so much more technically focused than we were. I mean, if I look at our budget today, a lot more money is spent on technology than when I started,
Sure.
23 years ago. And yet, if you look at what these experts are paid, it may be hard for nonprofits to procure that kind of expertise when our world is becoming increasingly technical. What are you seeing? Are you fortunate enough to be able to attract and retain these great people, at least in the nonprofit side? What are you seeing on the human side that is so important for your organization's success?
There's a couple things that, I'm walking into an organization that had, had this legacy of 20 years. One of the, I'd say, guiding principles of the organization is a sustainable revenue model. So that is something that I manage against when putting a budget forth and thinking about, this is a enduring utility that needs to exist until the end of time. So that's really important as we think both about recruiting and retaining talent, as well as how we're kind of able to build a strong foundation for the organization. Because we have a sustainable revenue model, that is one of the things that helps us kind of craft our strategy for hiring. And when you look back at the history of the organization, we have a very similar trend where we are now hiring folks with that are in operations or in finance, but have kind of this technology expertise. And I think that that's really exciting, especially with new generations entering the workforce, is finding people who have both kind of that perfect alignment of mission oriented, level of expertise in some sort of domain, and then a technical ability that can really help what used to be something that was maybe very manual, take it and make it a little bit, a stronger foundation so that it returns valuable time to other elements of the business. So as I've brought on new team members, I think that we've done a really good job of finding talent that has that, that sweet spot.
That's really important to do. So, all right, we're probably getting to the end of this, right? But I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us why we should be bullish on Network for Good and what you see maybe in the next 5 years under your leadership.
Thanks for the opportunity. I think I told you this. I often tell people I have the best job in the world, to serve an organization that has kind of been around since the beginning of online giving and build on that legacy. We've done $5 billion to 500,000 charities in the US. So not only is it a big number of dollars, the depth and breadth of nonprofits who have had Network for Good send them money is, really exciting. And that is a metric that I am really excited to see grow over the next 5 years. So in addition to, yes, we'd like to have more donations flowing and we'd like to be an active part of that. How is this about unlocking new opportunity for new causes and nonprofits that crop up and giving them visibility on the world's most influential giving platforms, because we have relationships and the opportunity to go out and talk to big brands and platforms, make those moments of generosity part of giving, and then make sure that those nonprofit leaders who are on the ground doing the work have a kind of sustainable and reliable source of how their donors reach them. So what you can expect from us in the next 5 years is a real honed focus on things like the velocity of funds, the deliverability, and trying to make it easy for those nonprofit leaders to get exposure to new audiences and in new places that they wouldn't otherwise.
Well, that's great. Well, you've been listening to Abby Ross, who is the CEO of Network for Good. And as you can see, she is energized and has many great ideas about how the organization can go about collaborating with other platforms to deliver great solutions for people who want to give to organizations, and also great opportunities for charities that want to see their opportunities flourish when it comes to receiving donations. So, Abby, thanks for what you're doing, and thanks for being a guest on the Heart of Giving podcast.
Thank you, Art. This was awesome.
Now, to all of those who are listening for the first time, this is a weekly show, and we are live on all major podcast platforms. You can hear the audio there. But if you want to watch the show, you can go to our YouTube page, the BBB Wise Giving Alliance YouTube page, and you can see the show that we've recorded there as well. I hope you'll check us out and subscribe, and we'll see you back here next week.
You've just listened to the Heart of Giving podcast with Art Taylor. Be sure to tune in next time for a brand new episode. To listen to our other interviews, visit heartgiving.podbean.com. That's heartgiving.podbean.com. Subscribe to our show on major podcast platforms. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are the views and opinions of the guests, not those of the BBB Wise Giving Alliance or program affiliates. This podcast is for information and educational purposes only and is copyrighted with all rights reserved. This podcast is protected by Podbean's terms of service.